After all these years, what could Willie Nelson say that would surprise his fans? The country music giant has always been honest, but what he just said about his longtime friend and fellow music legend Kris Kristofferson has really shocked everyone. It could be their bond, their music, or a long-kept secret. Let's look into Willie's shocking statement and see what it means for their famous bond. You'll have to guess until the very end of this one. Now that we know what that juicy secret is, let's quickly review these tales. What do you really know about them? Allow me to quickly go over it. The son of a soldier, Kris Kristofferson was born in Texas, also known as the Lone Star State. He had big hopes that his son would become an Air Force officer like him. He had no idea that young Kris had other plans. He moved around a lot as a child because of his dad's job. In the end, they decided to stay in California. He went to Pomona College after finishing high school in San Mateo. He liked writing a lot and was pretty good at it at that. His stories got him some awards. He got a hard summer job on Wake Island in the Pacific when he was 17. He said it was the hardest work he had ever done, but that was just the start of his exciting journey. Kristofferson did more than just read in college. He also did a lot of sports. He ran track and field, played football, and scrum football. For someone who wants to become a singer-songwriter, that's pretty good. His picture was even in Sports Illustrated. The kid named Kristofferson did great in school. He got the highest grades and was even asked to join Phi Beta Kappa, a club for very smart people. Frank Sontag, a philosophy professor who taught him, made a big impression on him. Kristofferson was able to study at Oxford University in England after college thanks to a special grant. He did more than just study while he was there. He hit people in the fighting ring too. He also began writing songs and played rugby. Kristofferson used to live in England and try to become a singer. He even changed his name to Kris Carson, but things didn't go so well. He was done with school and went back home. After being told by his family to join the army, he did. But he knew deep down that he wanted to write songs. He became an officer and even taught English at West Point for a while. Kristofferson then made a big choice. He quit the army to become a singer-songwriter, which was his dream. It made his family sad. People thought he was giving up on everything they held dear, but Kristofferson knew he had to do what made him feel good. It is the home of country music, so he moved there. At first, things were hard. To make ends meet, he had to do a lot of different jobs. No matter what, he never gave up on his dream. He even cleaned floors at a music studio. He met June Carter one day at the studio where he worked. He asked her to give Johnny Cash a tape of his music. Cash just put it on top of all the other ones she gave him. Kristofferson also had a job in Louisiana as a helicopter driver. Once a week, he would fly to Nashville to try to sell his songs. After that, he would go back to Louisiana to write more songs. There, he wrote some of his best-known songs, like Bobby McGee and Help Me Make It Through the Night. A well-known story tells how Kristofferson finally got Cash's attention. They say he put the helicopter down in Cash's front yard. It didn't really happen that way, but Kristofferson says it makes a good story. No matter what the truth was, Cash did listen to Kristofferson's songs. There was a song called Sunday Morning Coming Down that he really liked. Cash wrote it down, and a lot of people liked it. Kristofferson won a big award in 1970 for writing that song. For Kristofferson, that was just the start. Let's now talk about the singer Willie Nelson. Some people thought Willie Nelson was born on April 30th, 1933, when in fact he was born on April 29th, 1933. Mildred, his cousin, chose the name Willie Hugh for him in honor of her brother, who had died not long before. Some interesting people are in Willie's family tree. There is a soldier in his family tree named John Nelson who was a major in the American Revolutionary War. The parents of Willie worked hard and moved from Arkansas to Texas in search of better prospects. In the same way that Willie's grandfather had been a blacksmith, his dad was a mechanic. However, soon after Willie was born, both his mother and father moved away. His mother married someone else and moved away. This could have been a bad start for Willie, but fate had other ideas. His grandmother and grandfather raised him and his sister Bobby. They were great parents for a rising music star. They taught singing in Arkansas and were excited to share their love of music with their grandkids. Willie's grandfather bought him a guitar and taught him a few songs when he was only 6 years old. It was like letting a fish try water for the first time. Willie was good at it right away. Willie began writing songs early on when he started singing gospel songs in the neighborhood church. He wrote his first song when he was only 7 years old. He was already playing guitar for a neighborhood band called Bohemian Polka by the time he was 9. Young Willie's life wasn't all music and fun, though. His family, like many others in Abbott, picked cotton in the summer. Willie didn't like having to work hard, so he came up with a smart way to get out of it. He began making money by singing in dance halls, bars, and honky-tonks when he was 13 years old. He did this all through high school, which helped him get better and feel better about himself. Willie liked a lot of different kinds of music, like Wildflowers in Texas, A lot of different artists gave him ideas. Country greats like Hank Williams and Ernest Tubb, jazz greats like Django Reinhardt and Louis Armstrong, and even Frank Sinatra's smooth singing. Willie was more than just music in high school. He was also very athletic. In football, he played halfback, in basketball, he played guard, and in baseball, he played shortstop. He even raised pigs with people who would become American farmers, but music always called to him. Willie joined a band called the Texans while he was still in school. The band was started by Bud Fletcher, who is married to his sister. They played in honky-tonks and even had a show on a local radio station every Sunday morning. Willie's life changed in some interesting ways after high school. He filled in as a phone operator for a short time in Abbott. Then he tried working for the local power company as a tree cutter. He worked for a while in a pawn shop. Willie joined the U.S. Air Force in 1950, but his time in the military didn't last long. He was officially released after only 9 months because his back hurt. In the end, it looks like Willie Nelson wasn't meant to be a police officer. When Willie went back to normal life in 1952, he chose to settle down and married Martha Matthews. He wasn't ready to settle for any job, though. From 1954 to 1956, he went to Baylor University to study agriculture and even joined a club. But the call of music was too strong, and he dropped out to follow his true calling. Willie's road to fame wasn't a straight one. His different jobs helped him make ends meet. He was a bouncer at a nightclub, a car partsman, a saddle maker, and once more a tree trimmer. He played in Johnny Bush's band for a while. The Nelson family then moved to Texas, and Willie's life took another interesting turn there. He tried out for a job as a DJ at KBOP, a neighborhood radio station. Dr. Ben Parker, who owned the station, took a chance on Willie even though he had never worked in radio before. This was a very important time in Willie's career. Willie made his first 2 records at the station in 1955 using its gear. The storm just started, and that's when I sang my last hillbilly song. These weren't very high-tech shows. He used old tapes to record the songs and sent the demos to Sarg Records, a local record company. They turned him down, which was a shame. It was hard for Willie Nelson to give up, though. Besides his main job, he also worked at radio stations in Denton and Fort Worth. He taught Sunday school, ran a show called The Western Express, and played in bars in Fort Worth. Willie worked hard and did everything he could to make his dream come true. Willie was bored and decided to try his luck in San Diego. When he couldn't find work there, he took the risky choice to hitchhike to Portland, Oregon, where his mother lived. It turned out that this trip was quite exciting. Willie spent the night in a ditch because no one picked him up, but this failure didn't stop him. He got on a freight train that was going to Eugene. Being determined in this way would help him become a star. Finally, a nice truck driver came and picked Willie up. He took him to a bus stop and even gave him $10 to buy a ticket to Portland. This kind thing kept Willie's dream alive and helped him get where he was going. How did these stars get together? Watch out for now. Willie Nelson and Kris Kristofferson found their true calling when they worked with Johnny Cash, Waylon Jennings, and other wild country stars. They didn't just make songs together, they started a movement that would forever change country music. By the end of the 1960s, Willie and Kris were tired of the smooth Nashville sound. Bigwigs in the music business wanted a certain style of country music that was smooth, popular, and easy on the ears. That being said, our dynamic pair had other plans in the works. They wanted to get country music to its most basic level, as a way to connect with regular people through stories, often with a radical twist that made the upper class squirm in their rhinestone-studded boots. The outlaw country movement began here. This was the start of a musical revolt that shook Nashville like a 10 on the Richter scale. Willie and Kris were the faces of this new wave of country music, along with Johnny Cash and Waylon Jennings. Their songs weren't about cool pickup cars or Friday night beers. No, sir. They dug deeper and talked about the rough and messy parts of life. Heartbreak that hit you right in the gut, fights with the bottle that left scars, the sweet taste of forgiveness, and the daily struggle to be yourself in a world that often wants you to be someone else. During this time, Kris Kristofferson's music was nothing less than revolutionary. Just look at Sunday Morning Coming Down. The country song about good times and pretty girls wasn't like most of them. Instead, it showed a man waking up with a terrible headache and a bad taste in his mouth from ashtray, trying to remember what happened the night before while feeling guilty about everything. It was real. It was true, and it hit home for fans who were sick of standard country music's sugar-coated view of life. Me and Bobby McGee was the next song. It has become as well known in country music as a cowboy hat. Kris summed up a generation with lines like freedom is just another word for nothing left to lose with the depth of a philosopher. He put together stories of love and loss to make something that wasn't your average boy meets girl country love song. After Janis Joplin sang this song with her famous raspy voice, it became a hit that would last for decades, making both the song and its writer famous in the pages of music history. They became friends in the recording studio, but their friendship got stronger as they worked in the music business. The two of them turned their backs on Nashville's glitz and glamour and chose to follow the path of truth. They were as set in their ways as old cows when it came to their artistic vision. They wouldn't give in, even if it meant being turned down or seeing their money disappear. In the 1970s, Willie and Kris, along with Waylon Jennings, Johnny Cash, and other outlaw pals, formed a supergroup that made music execs go crazy. They called themselves the Highwaymen, which was a great name for a group of outlaws. The Suits didn't just come up with this idea to make quick cash. The fact that they were both artists showed how much they respected each other's work and how close they were as friends. A lot of people will remember the songs that this group made, including the song that gave them their name, Highwaymen, which became a rebel anthem. But the real story of Willie and Kris's friendship took place out of sight. They worked together, but they were also brothers in guns. They were together for a very long time. Whether they were on the road in a beat-up tour bus, working late in smoky recording studios, or sitting around campfires passing a guitar back and forth, they talked about life, music, and how fame can be both good and bad. The two guys were very philosophical and often thought about life, success, and where they fit in this crazy world. A lot of people thought of Kris Kristofferson as a tough, fearless criminal who could take on any task. But Willie Nelson's recent revelations have shown the private fights that Kris fought for years. Kris hadn't told anyone about these problems. It was hard for him to show how passionate his job had been, but in his later years he told Willie what was going on. Kris carried a heavy load of guilt and sorrow, which was one of the most shocking things Willie said. It didn't matter how successful Kris was or how many people loved him, he always felt like he had paid too much. He told Willie that he felt bad that he wasn't there for his family, especially his kids, more. As a traveling musician, you spent a lot of time on the road. While Kris was living his dream, he missed out on important times with his family back home. At the end of his life, this shame was killing Kris. Willie also said that Kristofferson had told him that he was very afraid that he had failed as a father and husband. Fans who held Kris in high regard will find this hard to accept. There was Kris Kristofferson, this huge person who seemed to have everything. They had ability, success, and respect, but they also had the same doubts and regrets that most people do. But Willie and Kris's story isn't all sad and regretful. Their friendship made them both stronger and gave them a place to go when fame and its effects got too much. Kris had Willie by his side through good times and bad. He was always there to listen and lend a shoulder when the weight of the past got too much for him to carry alone. Even as they got older, their musical relationship kept getting better. When they were together, they never lost that spark that made magic. Willie and Kris showed that real artists can be of any age, whether they were writing new songs or giving old favorites a new lease on life. One of the sweetest things about their friendship was how they helped each other stay sober. Each man had a fight with alcohol, and they knew how hard it was to stay sober every day. They turned to each other for support, giving each other words of encouragement when temptation came calling and enjoying each sobriety milestone with each other. You can't say enough about how much they changed country music. Along with their fellow rebels, Willie and Kris made it possible for country artists who wanted to go outside the lines to do what they did. They proved that country music isn't just honky-tonk and tear-jerker songs. It could be used to make social comments, for pushing the limits and looking into the human state. Even though they were getting older, Willie and Kris still inspired each other and everyone else. Their hearts were still as fiery as ever, even though they were moving more slowly and their voices were rougher. But they stayed true to their craft, their friendship, and the values that had guided them all through their lives. Kris Kristofferson is no longer with us, but his spirit goes on in every chord and word that stands for the history of country music. The time he lived in is over, but the things he did will always be remembered. In the hills and heartlands, his music will connect the past and the present as long as guitars are strung around campfires and voices rise in song. Kris was more than just a country star. He was a poet of the people who wrote about life, love, death, and everything else in between in a way that was both deeply personal and universal. What did you like most about Kris Kristofferson? What did you like about him? Please tell us in the comments. Thanks for reading this far. You really like what we do. Please take a moment to subscribe to our station. With your help, we can keep giving you interesting stories like this one.